Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes.
Yeah, welcome back.
This is Carl Franklin, Richard Morris,
We got some friends.
Daisy Bracken Hall,
Hey.
Kim Howerton,
Hello.
Brenda Zorn,
Hey, what's up?
Nick Mailer,
Hello.
and we're all here and we're hanging out. It's our holiday hangout. We did this last year with a few of our friends, Richard,
Yeah.
and it was so much fun.
And Amber showed up in the middle of it.
That was fun.
That was fun.
You guys hanging out? Can I come? Sure. Join in. I'm going to have some beer because it's like 5 in the morning here.
Perfect.
That's a good time for beer.
Beer o'clock.
There's beer o'clock somewhere in the world.
That's just cruel. Is that a big head? That's
that's
mean.
a big
That's
head
just.
beer,
I'm fast at 82 hours. You're cruel, man. That's it.
Oh, the amber nectar of big head beer.
I'm fasted 48 hours by now.
Excellent.
I'm considering going all the way through Christmas.
Wow.
It's just so
You
much
rebel,
fun.
you.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
know.
That's badass.
So how many days would that be fasting?
6. If
Wow.
I end up at the holiday party at my brother's house on the 27th, it'll be 6 days.
Wow.
On the 12th day of fasting.
Carl went to Jay's.
12 glasses of water. 11 teaspoons of salt.
Exactly.
10 more glasses of water.
And some magnesium just in case.
Salmon broth.
40 trips to the bathroom. I have to pee all the time when I'm fasting.
Well, I'm not fasting. I've just got a ham, and it's really cool the fact that Julie has a restaurant because the chef at the end of the year, they go away for like 3 weeks, and so they get rid of all of the food. So we've got like a whole ham from them. We've got a side of salmon. We've got a goose.
Oh, that's a shame.
A goose? Oh, yum. That's so good.
Yeah, fatty and
Very.
Oh, yeah, we've never eaten goose before, so it's gonna be that's gonna be fun.
Can render some schmaltz.
Oh yeah, some schmaltz.
Can you tell me what bubbles and squeak is?
Bubble and squeak. It's a leftover.
Leftovers.
It's a
Leftovers.
leftover from roast dinners, and you mush up usually cabbage and roast potatoes, and you just mush it all up together, and then you fry it. Yeah, anything, all the greens and
And there's like drippings and stuff in it too, like burnt ends. Or...
fry it in drippings. Yeah, it's a leftover meal that you tend to have on the Monday night. So you'll have like cold meat and bubble and squeak.
So it's like hash.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Yeah, hash.
Bubble and squeak.
My family had a holiday party, and I made lemon curd pavlova.
I saw that, Kim. That looked good.
And I explained to them that in Australia this time of year it is cold, therefore this is why we have this. I was doing an Australian lesson for
so
them.
it's hot. It's the middle of summer.
It's
the middle
hot.
of a
That's
heat
what I
wave
meant to
right
say.
now.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's hot this time of year, so you want a cold dessert.
It was one or the other.
One or the other. And everyone took to calling it a Pavlovian.
Oh, no.
So now
That's
they're
great.
like, can I have some Pavlovian?
So like it's made with dog
Yeah.
saliva?
Yeah, so now it's called the Pavlovian in my family.
Somewhere a psychiatrist is ringing a bell.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
right,
so
and everybody's
every time my
salivating.
family gets together, somewhere a psychiatrist is ringing a bell, I'm going to have to say.
That's awesome.
That's a cash register.
Was it crispy on the outside?
It was crispy
intrigued
on the
by-
outside. It was a
Really?
sugar-free pavlova, I should say.
Yeah. Which sweetener did you use?
I used powdered swerve.
Uh-huh.
That's like your go-to. You like that.
It's erythritol and oligosaccharides mixed.
So that browns it.
Yeah, and I buy it pre-powdered, or it's confectioners, but you can also throw it in throw a granular sweetener in I use a little coffee grinder to make it powdered. But
Tell you, after we talked to Karen Ogilvy on Two Keto Dudes, I bought some allulose.
Oh,
yeah.
And I tell you, it's not as sweet as sugar,
Yeah.
but man, everything about it is sugar.
I know, but
So
in the
mechanically?
FDA application, it showed signs of liver swelling in the people
Oh.
that tried it, which makes me nervous.
Say what?
Oh,
Yeah.
hey.
You have to be careful though, because I've seen some of those signs for other things, and what often it is that they just, whatever they're pumping you full of, even if it's just a huge amount of water, and then the liver grows slightly.
Oh,
as
that
it's
might be
grown.
true.
The kidneys. I think the same thing. They say, "Oh, the rat's liver grew," and you say, "Well, yeah, you basically pumped them full of some substrate that did that." But I know if you really want to be safe, erythritol is really safe because it basically gets absorbed and you urinate it out immediately, and nothing happens to it. I don't know about allulose yet, though. It's still being tested, and I think it's in some Quest bars now, isn't it?
It's in the Quest bars, which give me
Yeah.
horrible gas.
Didn't you didn't get on very well with it, did you? Didn't you try it, Kim? And you found it a bit.
The allulose didn't give me any bloating or gas, and I have digestive problems with all the other ones.
I think the Quest bar problems are they're full of
Fiber.
and that's going to be giving you the gas more than the sweetener. I guess.
Got the allulose honey, and I tried it, and I believe my description was, for a second it tasted like poison. For another second, it tasted good. Then it tasted like poison again. But that might have been like the honey flavor they added to it.
Delicious.
Yeah, probably
But
would be.
I was not a big fan. But I was excited about it, and then I got very nervous Jewish mother about it.
I made an ice cream with it, and it was the best ice cream I've ever made.
And it stayed. Did it give that softness that?
It was soft.
Huh.
Yeah, but here's the thing: how I made it. I wanted to modify the recipe because you have some give with recipes, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to modify it so that it was easy to remember.
Okay.
So I used a dozen egg yolks and a quart of heavy cream, and then vanilla to taste and sweetener to taste. And it turns out that made a perfectly soft, wonderful, premium Ben & Jerry's style ice cream.
Did you make a custard or did you?
Yeah, I made a custard. So I heated it up.
Yeah.
Just until the bacteria dies. What is it, 165 degrees or something like that, Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. And then I let it cool, and I cooled it overnight in the fridge, and then, the Alton Brown method, and then put it in an ice cream freezer for a half an hour, and man, it was it came out soft, and then I put it in a plastic and put it in the freezer overnight, and man, it was so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got some advice for custards. Because I love making custards. Because my daughter loves having them frozen in the little silicone molds, the little custard treats. And so if you've ever wondered what on earth the lowest setting on your microwave oven could ever be used for, the one was basically breathing on your food. I take fewer egg yolks than you because it's fit in a Pyrex jar. I take 5 egg yolks, about 600 ml, which is probably just over a pint of cream. Mix it all together, vanilla, mixed very well. Then you put it in the Pyrex jug in the microwave, put a lid on top of the Pyrex jug, and you put the microwave on for 20 minutes on the lowest heat.
Like defrost?
Yeah, mine's called warm. It's below defrost. It's like unbelievable, the lowest setting.
It's sort of if you just put it under your sweater.
Exactly.
Well, that makes sense because really you don't want to cook the eggs, but you want to kill the bacteria. So that's very smart.
And then what you can do is you can also really control how thick you want it, because if after that 20 minutes it's still too runny for you, you just maybe do another 10 minutes, you then mix it and test it again. The nice thing about that is you don't have those, it never ever curdles like it sometimes does at the bottom of a pan. You don't have to use a bain-marie or anything like that. So if you've ever wondered what the heck should I be using the very lowest setting on my microwave for,
there you go.
It makes
That's
a good
great.
custard.
That's very smart.
It works
very
well.
smart.
And then you don't have any cleaning up because it's in the
custard.
Pyrex jug. Yeah. Oh, custard is beautiful. If you can cope with dairy, there are very few things nicer than a good vanilla custard as a base for all sorts of treats.
If you don't do dairy, there's a brand of coconut cream called Aroy D, AROY-D, and it is just like heavy cream. I order it in paper containers, and it makes amazing ice cream.
Wow.
And I use it to make panna cotta.
Do you know what that means?
What?
Because it's Thai. Aroy. Aroy is good. It means good.
Good D.
Yeah.
Wow.
Aroy D, yeah.
All right.
Maybe D is for coconut or something, or whatever the Thai word is for coconut.
Okay.
Kevin and I just bought an ice cream maker, so we've been having some fun with it.
You guys are going crazy with the food posts on Facebook. I love it.
Well, I gotta kind of spoil him right now. He's new.
Yeah.
He's new to keto. So, but we're making eggnog this weekend, and we're going to use some of it to make ice cream because you pretty much can just throw it in the ice cream maker.
So last year, Amber had an eggnog recipe, didn't she, at our Keto Hangout, which is just like raw eggs and whiskey or something.
Well, that's Amber.
Yes,
Amber being
exactly.
Amber.
Just throw some egg yolks in the blender and pour in an entire container of whiskey.
Yeah.
You're good.
If you pour some of my custard while it's still quite liquid into some whiskey, you get perfectly good eggnog.
Yep.
So and it works really nicely.
Or you could just drink the whiskey.
Yeah, you could just skip all that, right?
But isn't it? I'm just thinking it's really nice that this way of eating is one of the few ways of eating where you can have all the best desserts with very little modification. Like, obviously, the best dessert, cheesecake, if you can have dairy, then basically you can have a pretty much perfect cheesecake.
Yeah.
You can.
And, you know, what sort of, if you just tell them this is the diet where you can have cheesecake and not feel guilty, that should surely be enough to sell it to anybody.
I was having this conversation with a client yesterday who was very upset she couldn't get crispy cookies. And I was saying, you know, crispy cookies are one of the hardest things to do on keto. But I think the way to enjoy life in general is to think like, okay, what can I do? Like, I could spend the entirety of my life upset that I am not a marathon runner, because that is never happening. The genetics are not here.
Not happening here.
But I can do like 50,000 other things, and I should probably. I was like puddings, custards, you know, like this enormous list of delicious things. I was like, focus on those.
Lobster and tarragon butter.
I have a crispy keto cookie that I made for Kevin, so I'll have to post that. So it's peanut butter. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, well, we'll share.
Yeah, I definitely am going to share that.
Well, I was wondering, what's the kind of the one sentence secret to getting crispiness in this way of eating?
Pork skins.
Cheese. You can make crispy cheese crackers.
Cheese, melted cheese crackers. Those get very
those are
crispy.
good.
Well, and I also have a recipe for crispy crackers that involve baking gelatin, and that'll get crispy.
That's very clever.
Interesting.
Wow.
I just mix gelatin with hemp hearts, and you bake it, and it makes incredibly crispy crackers.
Have you guys used konjac root powder as a starch or maybe as a breading?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm thinking of making up some onion rings. And I haven't done this yet, so I don't know if any of you ever done it, but I want to take some konjac root powder, put some salt and some flavorings in that, and, you know, an egg wash, and then actually use that in total as the breading and fry it. And I don't know if it's going to come out all right or not, but I'm planning on trying it after my
Have you
fast.
tried making onion rings with crushed pork rinds and dipping it in an egg wash first? And
I have, and I've done a lot of frying of a lot of things that way.
you want to try something different? I do everything with pork rinds.
I was going to say, I'm astounded that Brenda mentioned pork rinds.
Really.
Exactly right.
It's not a show if pork rinds don't come up.
That's right.
I'll tell you what, your pork rind pancakes are amazing.
Isn't that weird that they
And the
taste so good,
waffles.
but they're made so weird? Yeah, right? The waffle iron. That was your idea, Richard. We're at Breckenridge right back in February, and all of them had asked me to make the pancakes when I was there because they all wanted to try it. And then Richard, while I was mixing the batter, Richard's in the background digging through the cupboards because this house is, you know,
Stocked.
and it's stocked. It was stocked. And he finds a waffle iron. He's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, what the hell? Might as well try it." And darn if they didn't work.
They were amazing. I recently came up with a pork rind pumpkin muffin recipe, and it's amazing.
Good.
It's strange as hell, but it's amazing.
It's strange that, you know, you try not to think about what you're eating when you mix the crushed pork rinds. That pork rind flour, right?
Yeah.
Ew, right? But just try it. You'll be blown away.
I mean,
you gotta try
we
it.
used to use lard for everything. How different is it?
Yeah, right.
I love lard. It's so good.
We've kind of been able to replicate almost every food because we've got the fats and we've got the replicants for starches and so on.
I totally
But what about
agree. Yeah.
But there's one thing, flaky pastry.
Yes.
Can you make something that's flaky like that?
Baklava kind of thing.
Yeah, baklava.
You seriously need to try the fried bread if you're missing flaky pastry. It'll
Does it actually get
It doesn't
flaky?
get flaky, but you're not going to want any flaky pastry after you eat that. I'll tell you. It's like eating donuts. It was so good. Nick, you were asking how you get these cookies crispy, the peanut butter cookies.
Yeah.
There is no flours added. There's no almond flour. There's no coconut flour. If you hear the ingredients, you're not even going to think that it would work and that would make a cookie. But they just have peanut butter. I use Truvia, an egg, salt, vanilla extract, and baking powder. That's it. No flours. And they're soft when they come out of the oven, and then they get crispy.
Did you use the Truvia in the one that doesn't add sugar?
Yes, I used, it was a generic Truvia, but it just only had erythritol and stevia, although I'm moving away from using stevia now, but that's another topic. But anyway,
me too.
they get crispy.
Nice.
Kevin loves them, so.
My maternal grandfather's from Yorkshire and Julie's from Yorkshire as well. And one of the food items that I thought we'd never be able to eat with keto is Yorkshire pudding.
Ah, yeah.
Oh.
And on Daisy's podcast, Daphne Elrod did a Yorkshire pudding the other day, and she uses whey powder.
Really?
So finally, a use for protein whey powder.
Oh, good, because I'm staying away from whey.
Good. I don't do whey.
Yeah, I don't do whey either. Yikes.
No way.
No way I'm doing whey.
Richard or Nick, can you just briefly tell us what Yorkshire pudding is?
It's not unlike a puddingy popover.
A popover is probably the closest thing. It's really a pancake mixture. You basically put hot dripping from cooking beef into muffin tins and you pour a pancake mixture in. And the mixture is just egg, milk and flour, so regular pancake mixture. But Taffany uses a cup of heavy cream, 3 large eggs, 2 tablespoons of melted fat or butter. So you could use tallow, you could use lard or whatever. Half a cup of unflavoured whey protein powder, a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of xanthan gum. She says additional half a cup of hot fat, preferably beef drippings. She just mixes wet ingredients and stirs the dry ingredients in or blends them in a blender, and then you heat the beef fat in a pan or muffin tins in a preheated oven, and then you add the batter and you bake it to 425 Fahrenheit or 220 Celsius until they're puffed and brown. They basically puff up like
Is that like a panna cooking?
That's a word I've never heard before.
Really?
I think that's a little denser.
That's Scandinavian, right? Surely. A panna cooking?
They're quite light. So have you tried them, Richard? Have you tried the recipe?
No, that's what we're going to do this Christmas because we use Marco Pierre White's recipe for Yorkshire puddings until we went keto. I mean, you're not going to have flour in a ketogenic context. So.
Well, if you think about it, cloud bread or oopsie bread has kind of got that consistency to it. If you make the oopsie bread recipe and then just put some drippings in, maybe hot drippings over it when it comes out, when they come out.
So I make something that I call on-purpose bread, which is a little different.
Oh, instead of oopsie, that's great.
You take the oopsie recipe and you fold in like some hemp heart and almond flour, but just a couple tablespoons, just to give it a little substance. And then I mix bacon fat into that, and it makes rolls. Like,
do you guys have any idea how hard it is talking about food when I am 84 and a half hours fasted?
It's funny, before the call, we were all talking about intellectual topics, but as soon as we start recording, we're like, food.
Well, I'm 2 days fasted, Brenda, and I'm not having any problem with the food talk.
I started getting hungry in the middle of the night last night.
So Carl is better than you.
No, I just...
Morally better. Morally, you have more self-control.
Actually, 2 more days, I might be having the same issues. So I've only been 2 days. She's been 4.
Yeah, and I have a bad cold, too. This is the first time I fasted with the cold. But you know what? It didn't get any worse. I think the fasting really helped with my head cold. I don't hardly ever get sick. This is the first time in like a year and a half or something. But yeah, in the middle of the night last night, I started feeling uncomfortable.
Sorry.
So... No, don't be sorry. My God, I get to eat in 3.5 hours. I can do this.
There you go. All right. There you go.
We're just building the appetite.
That's right. No kidding. Good thing there's no food down here in the office. Holy shit.
I can make you some Pavlovian.
Yeah.
So I can shift the topic away from food, and I think this will be a good thing for us to do on our Hangout. And that is, I want each of you to go around in turn and just sort of recap for us all the cool things that you've done this year and all the good things that have happened. And I want to start with Nick because, everybody else we sort of have heard from, at least on our show, and we haven't heard from you, Nick, in a while. So what the heck have you been doing besides debunking bad science?
I'm afraid, in a very dull way, I've been doing the day job. But actually, I have done something else. I gave a talk at the Ancestral Health Symposium about how dads can screw up breastfeeding, basically.
Yeah.
I saw that.
You should watch it. It's basically I'm mansplaining to men how you're not being introduced to a petting zoo, and if you want to feed someone, feed your wife, and that kind of thing.
You're awesome. I breastfed both my babies. You're awesome.
But last time I checked, men don't lactate, so I'm not sure how.
I know,
but they can be a big support.
Here's the problem, Carl. The whole talk basically goes about how there was kind of traditional masculinity and how traditional societies reared children and helped women feed their children and what the role of the fathers were and that kind of thing, and looked at some tribal societies.
Yeah.
Then we looked at what the formula companies did and things like that.
Oh, that's awful. Yep.
basically what's happened subsequently is that we've been screwed, and we've been telling women that they're basically pretty useless. They probably can't cope, and they need some men to help them by pumping their babies full of industrial foods by lovely companies like Nestle and so on.
It's definitely a topic that needs to be covered. Yep, it's awful.
And so if you want to look at my talk at AHS, that's what I was talking about. And particularly, there are really weird statistics about different countries that are more and less supportive of women, and how they aren't able to breastfeed in those countries where they are not supportive of those women. And there's some really stark, horrible statistics there.
Yeah.
And so what happened was the traditional masculinity then gave way to the new dad, the dad who wants to be very involved, the dad who is indeed at the birth, which is unprecedented in our species history. And then suddenly there's new dad, Athena poster dad, who's suddenly in touch with his touchy-feely side. Problem is, new dad gets a bit greedy and gets a bit needy, and new dad says, hold on, I want to help with the feeding. I don't think it's fair that mum has this very special bond with her child. I want to muscle in. Let me help you with the night feeds, dear. Let me prepare the bottle. Why don't you have a sleep? I'll feed the baby. And there was this amazing photograph of our then Prime Minister David Cameron kind of bottle feeding his kid, and then bottle feeding a literal kid, or a lamb as it was, at a petting zoo. And this kind of your child as a status symbol petting zoo thing, which is very much promoted by the formula companies. If you look at all the advertising that they do and so on. And what's really amazing is when you start looking at the way the formula companies have acted over time, and how they've distorted science, and how they've lied about nutritional statistics, and how they've made people feel enfeebled. I thought, where have I heard this story before?
Yep, that's so great that you're doing that, Nick. In the early 80s, when I had my first child, I was not supported to breastfeed.
No.
And I live in Minnesota. Yeah, so I did it anyway. I went to the library, got a stack of books, read about everything, and did it on my own. I was pretty much on my own. By the time my second child came, I had support.
You know how, again, in this community, when, for example, Richard or Carl, you suggest to diabetics maybe they shouldn't necessarily be eating carbohydrates to the degree that they're told to by standard registered dietitians, and you're told that you're dangerous, and you're a cult, and you're this and that and the other.
I would like to somebody tell me I'm a cult. I don't think I've been raised to that status yet.
Carlians.
Well, guess what? My wife is a breastfeeding counselor, and she runs prenatal classes in the UK and so on. And then when she talks to some people, they say, oh, you're part of the breastapo. You're a breast Nazi.
Oh, gee.
Which is the phrase they use. And to which she says, do you think that I'm rolling in big boobs money bank here? You think this is where all the money is? You think, who's paying me to do this?
There is a problem in that there is a small percentage of the population that for whatever reason can't breastfeed.
Correct.
And there's no good option for them. The only thing is breast milk food banks. There's you can buy someone else's breast milk.
And you know what happened to those, Kim, don't you? In the 80s, during the AIDS scare, the formula companies started becoming very, very active in getting those stopped, which they did.
Right. They're like underground now. You have to join the black market breast milk.
Which is crazy.
Well, I think we can all agree that of the two sexes, women are the magicians. Yeah, I mean, you do this magic trick where you can reproduce, and men, we have very little to do with it, right? And so I think that there's a. I'm serious. We have very little to do. We get everything started, and then
as a time investment, yours is much shorter.
Over to you.
Yeah, and for some people, as a life investment, with the lack of fathers in the world that sort of bail. And, it's sad because women are clearly where it's at, clearly the superior species among us, just for the act of heroism and physical feat of nature. It's just amazing to us.
And I think any man who supported his wife through labor and then the subsequent birth feels very inadequate and in a very peculiar sort of awe afterwards, I can tell you that. And I think that's probably why men have so many weird rituals.
That's why I write software. I create an intelligence.
That's what I think, but that is, and lots of feminists, whether it's more on the right, like Camille Paglia or others, say it is, all these things that men do are kind of trying to get to a state of what women can just do anyway. And there's this kind of real envy, and come on, I'll create a Perl script if you.
That's right. I tell you what I got out of your talk, which I'd never thought of before, was the concept of pink shaming. The fact that we shame young girls for liking marking girly things as such.
Exactly.
Tell them that they should be equal to boys and they should have, a G.I. Joe or whatever, and, it's really, it's subverting their own femininity.
Oh, I got a story about that. I'm sorry. I'll just be very quick here. My first wife, whom I had my children with, she did her dissertation in college on gender stereotypes in media. Okay. So she was basically saying the reason that all these little boys play with guns and the reason these little girls play with dolls is because the images that they're bombarded with, the subtle suggestions that they're given by their parents and all that stuff. So when we had our first baby, who's been on the show, actually, Emmy, we specifically didn't want to know the sex, and we decorated her nursery in green. Okay? Just whatever. Just rabbits, rainbow rabbits with green, okay? And so we didn't do any of that stuff, We didn't expose her to the girly stuff at all. And before we know it, she's walking around the house filling up 2-liter soda bottles with warm water and putting them to sleep with blankies over them.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and the thing is, Carl, that the point is, whatever the reason for that is, whether there is something that's biologically nurturing or whatever, what's interesting is we still we think that is lesser. We minimize that. We say, "Oh dear, that's kind of you shouldn't be worrying about your little pink frilly things and being a princess. What you should be thinking about is being a businesswoman or being a space woman or whatever."
Right.
Still, that masculine is better
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point.
In women.
than anybody.
And I know nobody will see this except the people on the call, but I was sitting down and I noticed that my daughter's pink dinosaur over here, which I was sitting on,
I love that.
kind of summarizes things. You shouldn't have to choose, if you're a little girl, between those two magisteria,
Right.
the pink and frilly and all the other exciting things that you can be. But we kind of say, I read in a forum when I was researching for the talk, and there were these mothers saying, "Oh, thank heavens, she stopped playing with dolls and she's playing with water pistols." And I said,
Right.
so nurturing, so modeling nurturing a child is considered lesser than modeling killing somebody. Okay, and you suddenly realise what we're actually talking about when we talk about these things, and you realise actually you're still constantly putting down any notion of whatever the reason that we have a notion what there is to be feminine. We're taking that as undesirable second-class thing. And if it's bad for girls, you can imagine how bad it is for boys who also then want to play in doll's corner or whatever. That's even worse. At least a girl can be a kind of tomboy. Boys, on the other hand, that want to play with these things, they have a real hell of a time. So yeah, it's a very sticky mire we find ourselves in when we start talking about these things.
Yep.
Even worse than nutrition.
Well, there's so much more to talk about there, but I want to get to everybody else. So, Daisy, tell us about your year. It's been pretty good for you, huh?
Me, my year. Yeah, it's been a sad year in some ways. I've lost 2 dogs this year that have been with me for 14 years, so that was really hard. But good things, yeah, lots of good things. The KKB, my Facebook group, with just built this amazing group of women who
Kick-ass keto bitches.
kick-ass keto bitches. That's it. And
Kick arse.
Kick arse, yeah.
kick-ass keto. Yeah.
Kick, not kiss. Yeah.
Yeah. What did I say?
Kiss ours?
Kick-ass keto bitches, not kiss us. They don't kiss us.
Hardly
That's it. I'm going to make a Facebook group, Kick-ass keto bitches, right now.
like that, but different.
But they're fabulous.
So it's quite a great group.
They're just amazing. I get so much from them. It's just an amazing group of women.
And you find some of them to interview on your podcast, right?
Yes, I was going to say, and the huge thing this year was when these 2 keto dudes
Those idiots.
asked me to host a podcast, Keto Women Podcast, which has just been an amazing experience. It was scary as shit. Really, really scary, but I just love it. It's a great excuse just to talk to amazing women, extraordinary women every week, and get to ask them all the questions I'd like to ask.
Right. Yeah, they have been extraordinary. And it's been fun. I mean, it's great for us because, we're getting these things started, and then hopefully they have a life of their own after a while.
And Daisy does a lot of work to get this up. She builds the scripts and she puts together the interviews, and she does all of the work without needing our attention. And Carl and I are working on some other big podcasts which do take a lot of our attention. So I just want to say I really appreciate Daisy's effort to be able to step up to the mark and get this stuff out.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a lot of work, no doubt.
It is, yeah. And we've got some help from an engineer, Brandon Wen, who is one of our Pop Studios engineers who's working on Daisy's show, and he sort of took it over. So
he's fabulous. He's really great to work with. I really appreciate the work he does. It's great.
We're getting it down to a science now.
yeah, I've got a real good formula going now, so it's brilliant. So that has just been fantastic. That's been the biggest thing this year. But recently I've also started running.
Oh.
I say running, I sort of do air quotes with that because it's more of a fast shuffle really. But
Cool.
yeah, doing the Couch to 5K program. Which I've been meaning to do for about 3 years. I bought these cheap trainers about 3 years ago, so that's how long I've been procrastinating about it.
These are running shoes for everybody not in England.
Yeah. Right, yeah. But I actually started, accidentally actually, a friend of mine online had started doing it in the UK with an actual physical running partner who dropped out, and she was really disappointed. So I said, as I often do, just on the spur of the moment, I'll be your virtual running partner. And then sort of thought the next day, oh no, I'm going to actually have to do it now.
Oh.
Yes, you
And
are.
I've always loved the idea of running. I thought, it's a fantastic thing to do, and but the actual thought of doing it in reality, no. But I have to say, I come very close to enjoying it. I'm 4 weeks in,
Wow.
and I can now run for the longest run is 5 minutes, but I can do it for 5 whole minutes. So,
Good job.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't think I could.
it's great.
Daisy, I've got a recommendation. Are you in the UK generally?
No, I'm here at the moment, but no, normally I'm in France.
Okay, I don't think France got. I don't know if the movement hasn't been as big across the world. There's a movement called Park Run.
Ooh.
Yes, my brother does it. Yeah, it's not in France, but it's something I'd like to do when I'm back in the UK. Yeah.
So it's completely volunteer run, and there are a group of people. There are hundreds of them across the UK, and at 9 a.m. every morning, you go to your local park run, and there's a start line, a finish line. The volunteers have put it all up. You've got a barcode.
Wow.
Then they get scanned at the end.
Oh.
You then start, and there's up to 100 or 200 people at a time. And they always say it's not a race, it's a run. And you can pace it at your own time. There are back runners as well who will keep up with you if you're the slowest.
Yeah, they have paces, don't they, throughout? Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's in a park, and you go around twice or whatever.
It's 5K, isn't it? It's a 5K run, is that right?
Whoa.
Yeah, it's 5K, and you get scanned at the end, and then you get your time on a nice web page. It records your personal best and so on.
Wow.
And my wife, who'd never done any running, did this because my brother helped to run it at his local park. And it really gets you into it. There's a real kind of festive volunteer atmosphere. Nobody is being a competitive pushy so-and-so, and you can go as fast or as slow as you want. What's even nicer is that on Sunday mornings, they now have the 2K junior park run.
Cool.
And my daughter
Nice.
is now, so you get like 50 or 60 kids all running around the park twice, and they get the same scans and all that kind of thing. And again, my daughter's really, really loving it. And we don't worry that she gets a personal best or anything. She was pretending to be a cat while she was running the other day and making.
Nice.
That's so sweet.
she was- And isn't that a great way of getting people enthused about movement and exercise rather than this really pushy, horrible, formalized kind of stuff?
Yep, that's a perfect way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already looked it up actually.
I think you might find in the US.
Yeah, I've looked it up. Hastings is where I plan to move to because I do plan to move back to the UK as soon as I've sold my house. And apparently they run along the seafront. So I bet that's
lovely.
fantastic. I'm really looking forward to doing that, yeah.
Yeah.
How's your keto life going, Daisy?
My keto life, well, I feel like my whole life is about keto, to be honest.
Join the club.
So
Yep.
it's great. When I talk about keto to other people and what it's done for me, the big things for me are the drastic improvement in my depression and migraines. I used to spend 2 weeks out of every month with a migraine. It was just awful. And now it's amazing when I get one. It's such a rare thing. It really hits me, and it's oh goodness, what are these things that I haven't had for ages, and I struggle to remember what it was like to have them so often. So I mean, there are all the normal things of losing weight and this, that, and the other, but they're the really big things for me because they had such a hugely negative impact on my life, and now they're pretty well gone.
Yeah.
I know a German scientist who is one of the premier researchers into migraines and how ketogenic diet ketosis can alter that. And I'd like to try and get her onto the Two Keto Dudes podcast at some point to talk about it. But she's also an amazing woman, so maybe we should get her onto your podcast.
Is she an extraordinary woman?
I'm going to get her first.
Competition.
Yeah.
That's healthy.
Healthy competition.
We share. We overlap sometimes. I interviewed Siobhan Huggins the other day, so
Oh, she's great.
I just like to get a different side, so we can share.
I love her. I love to hug her and scare her.
I know.
A Huggins that doesn't like to hug. That doesn't make sense, right?
She's a little shy, but she's very smart.
Oh, by the
and-
end of Keto
Very
Fest,
smart.
she was letting me kiss her and everything, so she's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Intrigue on the internet.
She'll be mortified that we're speaking of her.
I know, but it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah,
She's great.
She's great.
All right, Kim, I think it's your turn. Tell us what you've been doing. You've done quite a lot of stuff since we talked to you last.
I've been a little busy. I started with a friend of mine, Harlan. We started a Facebook group called Completely Keto, and it's fairly large. And we have a lot of people that we talk to every day about keto, how to be keto, what to do, what not to do. Then, so that's a good portion of my day, because a Facebook group with more than 100,000 people in it is a fair amount of effort.
Busy.
I've seen that group, and there's some great posts, but you're kind of a taskmaster.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes, she is. She absolutely is.
There will be no cheating.
Well, so I will say, like, the key to running a Facebook group is to not be subtle.
Yeah. There's no time for that.
Because the internet is really not the place for it. And
Yeah.
and what I say about cheating basically is, if you decide to make a choice that is not keto, you're not excommunicated. It's your life, it's your body. You get
Exactly.
to choose what to do with it. I don't necessarily want to hear about it here in the group, where it will trigger
yeah.
a bunch of other people
Good job.
who are trying to have a space. And I know I'm going to, people are like, save space, be, blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, you can set up rules so that
Right.
you have optimal success. And then I actually believe there's a psychological piece with it. So, I've been a life coach for a long time, and one of the things that people do often in relationships, I will make a link here. So, when people cheat on their partner in a relationship and they confess, sometimes they confess to heal the relationship, but mostly they confess because they stopped being able to handle the guilt that they were carrying with them, and they wanted to distribute some of that guilt to the other person. Right?
yeah.
You want to redistribute the load. And I don't actually think confession is healthy for that. I don't think so. A lot of people will eat a cookie, come to a group and be like, I ate a cookie. So that 20,000 people will say, you're only human. It's totally okay. I think
Right.
if you make a choice, you should have to I'm not trying to, you must suffer the consequence. No, but but if you make a choice, you should then see that choice through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, right.
and so that you can then make a decision about whether that was a good choice or a bad choice. And hey, maybe it was a good choice. I'm not you. I don't know, but
Yeah.
But I have my reasons for being a hard ass, basically.
So you don't want a confessional. You don't want confessionals on
No
your...
confessionals.
Yeah,
None.
great. I love
None.
that.
Not allowed.
I am with you there. Yeah.
We had somebody on the ketogenic forums the other day do something similar to this, saying, "It's Christmas time. I'm sorry, I'm going to cheat." And there's a few people who said, "Don't talk, don't trigger me," and there are others who said, "Go for it, whatever." And somebody just blurted out this comment, "I hope you yourself." I was like, yeah, that's going to get flagged. And
Yeah, that's-
12 people jump on and all flag it. And I said, right, yeah, we'll get rid of that. But as I said to this person, it's important to accept the fact that you're going to make this choice and you may well feel awful. You may well feel physically awful, and that's a useful thing to go through because you're going to learn whether you want to ever do that again.
Right.
And I think allowing kids to touch hot surfaces is an appropriate thing. So
I agree.
Well, like Nick said, he's like, I'm in a part of the world where I'm only there occasionally. They have the best thing ever. The repercussions for me are acceptable. I'm going to make that choice. Great. Like, he is an adult. Like, I am not the food police.
Exactly, and I also know that I am going to have acid reflux tomorrow. I know what's going to happen, which means I don't want to be doing this every day. 3 times a year is about enough, and I can cope with that. And it is a utilitarian thing. Is it worth the results? And you say, yeah, for me, I've just about waited. So when you go to Paris once a year, you go there and you go to the
boulangerie.
Exactly, and you say, if I'm going to have one of these things, it's got to be in Paris and it's got to be the best thing ever.
Right.
What really annoys me sometimes is where you kind of just go to the supermarket and get some sort of crappy frozen chocolate eclair. Come on, if you're going to blow out, at least do it well. Get the best that there is and really focus on it.
Good plan.
Throw some bacon on it, for Christ's sakes.
And I do think it is a bit of a slippery slope, eating off keto.
It is for me.
There does seem to be some validity to the cheat day issues. Like, Dr. Jacob Wilson did a study and he found like people that included a cheat day, their body composition was worse. So they lost the same amount of body weight as the full ketoers, as the keto during the week, cheating on the weekend people. So everybody lost similar amounts of weight, but when they did their body comp, they found that fully keto people lost almost all fat. And the cheaty people lost both fat and lean mass.
Messed up the process,
Yeah, exactly. So
it is a choice.
I agree with you. And there's this real bro science with carb backloading, carb night, and all that.
Yeah.
Just be honest.
Come on, you just want to eat donuts every weekend. Stop trying to turn it into pretend it's all sciencey.
Right.
Yeah, stop trying to make me eat a donut to validate your decisions.
Right.
That's a good one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cheat. Sorry.
Exactly.
So mostly I've been being a hard ass on my Facebook group, and then I'm a nice person when I'm a coach. So I vacillate.
So how many people have you coached? And I'm curious about your audience, your customers.
Oh, I have to add them up. Let's see. 1, 2.
Roughly.
About 200.
Okay, so out of those 200, have you ever been stymied?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I stymie myself, right? Like, but it's never been permanent.
Yeah.
There have been people where, they're not dropping weight. They're not doing this. There's not happening. And then, like, the advice you give to the masses work for 80% of the time, 90% of whatever. Right. But then, not every person hits this, but a lot of people will eventually get to a point where their body, my belief is they've reached a point at which they're no longer ill. Like they've gotten to a place where their insulin low, is in a range where they're not so sick. They're fit for a living. And like, honestly, from an evolutionary perspective, having a little extra padding is something your body probably wants.
Yeah, your body certainly doesn't want to be 8% body fat.
Right, exactly. And so now you have to at some point decide if you're going to make a change. Now, some people are naturally very lean and they never have to make this decision.
Yeah, we hate them.
I understand.
No,
yeah.
Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Totally kidding.
So some people, you just cure the insulin issues and they just drop all the way down till they're like, I can't stop losing weight. And you're like, oh, that's a problem. And so, but then there are a good portion of the population who is overweight where they actually cure the insulin problems. They're no longer pre-diabetic or diabetic. They're like in a healthy body. Their blood work looks great, but they are a little fluffier than they want to. And it's more of an aesthetic issue at this point. And you have to then say, okay, I think my body is healthy now. It's an aesthetic thing. Do I want to now take effort to change my aesthetics that might actually be less healthy from other points of view? And I don't have a judgment about that choice. And if somebody wants to make changes that push their body composition past what their body is. They're like, humming along, happy, fertile, ready for
Finny
the
white.
apocalypse kind of body. I'm like, I am built for the zombie apocalypse. I mean, I'm ready.
Me too. I'm ready.
I'm built for the snow apocalypse,
Exactly.
which is coming.
Kim, I think you're right. At some point, when you stop being ill, and then you basically have a choice of whether you want to become your own artwork, basically. And effectively, it's like it's like you're working on this piece of furniture, and you want to just take that little edge off, and you want to make it a really beautiful piece of furniture. You're right. It's an artistic endeavor at that point, really. And as you say, at that point, you decide, well, maybe some people, they want their life to be about that, even if they're going to be living a few years shorter life. They want to do that. Look at bodybuilders, for example, are very much in that realm as well, at the other extreme. They will do things that are actually quite damaging to give them the physique they want. It's not a physique that they would have ever really had in Paleolithic days to that degree.
Right,
But
totally.
they like it. It's an artwork, and they decide it. They make that choice.
Kim, what you're talking about is exactly where I'm at. I've still got some extra weight on, but I am so incredibly healthy. All my blood work is so fantastic. And I got to that point. It was like, well, do I want to change some things some more, to lose a little more and get down a few more sizes? I'm so comfortable now and feel pretty good with where I'm at. So I don't want to do any more work now. I got enough else going on.
And I think this is where a lot of fighting happens within the keto sphere, because we all have different assumptions, and some people assume that looking like a cover model on Ms. Fitness
is healthy.
Must be everyone's ultimate goal. And I actually did undergo this year a bit of experimentation with the whole, like, how much fat, how much protein. I did that whole thing. I followed some other opinions that weren't my opinion, but I was like, you know what? If I say I don't want to do it, I should probably try it. Yeah. And so I tried it, and I felt like an insane person. Like, I dropped the fat, I raised protein.
You weren't comfortable.
Now, I like the protein. I'm a fan of meat, so I like the protein being higher. But, like, I started feeling a little bit like a rat in a maze. And I was like, oh, this isn't worth it. It's not worth it to me. Now,
exactly.
do I still have goals that I'm trying to work towards? Yes. Like, I'm addressing different things. Like, life is long, and there is time.
Now, speaking of bodybuilding, about 20 minutes ago, Brenda stretched her arms in back of her head on the video camera. And I was like, oh, my God, don't kill me, woman.
Guns. Yeah.
She's got guns. Show us those again, Brenda. Come on. Do that.
Yeah, and that I don't know. Women have a lot of fat under their skin, so you can't really see them. But I'm telling you, they're pretty.
Oh my God!
No, you got some muscle.
I curl 80 pounds now.
You can see what's going on there.
Curl 80 pounds. You leg lift 800 pounds.
Leg lift 800 was the most I ever did. Yeah.
If when you make a muscle, your arm curves upwards, that's a sign of some. When it curves downwards, it's not.
I can feel it in there. There's still some fat under the skin. I'm okay with that. I'm 54.
Yeah.
Well, Brenda, it's your turn now. So you have probably the most remarkable story of all of us about what's happened to you in the last few months.
I don't know. All these people have such great stuff, and I'm kind of envious of some of it. But I don't know. Where do I even start?
Well, let's talk about Kevin.
I fell in love this summer.
Yeah, you did.
And after I'd known him for a few days, I found out he was on dialysis because of complications of type 2. I didn't know that when I first met him. And probably about 4 or 5 days in, and I've told him this, I got a hold of some friends, and Richard was one of them. And I said, I'm going to have to make a decision here because this is pretty serious to, get involved in serious health issues going on. And that's a lot to deal with. And then I thought it was meant to be, and I love him, and I can handle it. I'm a strong person, and I'm not sorry I decided to let myself become very fond and fall in love with this man. But he was watching what I was doing. We were dating, and he was watching what I was doing, and he started to listen to my story and read my story on Diet Doctor and listen to my podcast. And without telling me, he started eating low carb and started asking me questions. That's when I kind of realized he's wanting to do this. And he's had some fantastic things happen. And hopefully you'll have him on the show again. He can tell you about all his fantastic things. That he'd love to do that himself. But he would be here right now, but he's at dialysis. he definitely would have stopped in and said hi to you guys. But so that's a pretty incredible thing that's happened this year, is meeting him.
And you cooking with him, and the stuff that you're eating is amazing, and you've got his blood sugar down.
I'm luring him to the good side, see.
How is his blood sugar, and how was it?
It's trending down. How was it? Over 300s even on insulin. Now it's closer to, for a long time it was around 160. Now it's around 130s. He has a lot of readings around 100 or under.
Nice.
Wow.
His last A1C, his worst A1C was 12 and his last one was 6.4. So that was after just 11 weeks. So, I mean, he's improving. He's reversing his diabetes.
Yeah.
He's Native American, right?
Yeah, he's Ojibwe.
His folk are very susceptible to diabetes.
Much more so.
And his daughter, Cara, she's just recently had a diagnosis, right?
Oh, his daughter, Cara, I believe her diagnosis has been a while, actually.
Okay.
Because she's on insulin now. But she is interested in doing this, and she is okay with us mentioning her on podcasts.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, she's 28 years old. He also was diagnosed and on insulin immediately at age 28. He went into the hospital, and I believe blood sugars were 500. So obviously in that family, they get diabetes much younger. I was probably late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, I was 38. Yeah.
Yeah, so it happens at a younger age. So unfortunately, that means that he's been dealing with this longer, has been using insulin longer, and his kidneys had much more time to be damaged.
Right.
I went with him to dialysis yesterday, and I got to tell you, if you have type 2 diabetes, you better do everything you can to pay attention to this ketogenic thing and fasting and prevent that from happening to you.
Yeah, you don't want that.
You don't want to end up that way. So anyway, Kevin and I are very happy, and he's feeling good, and I'm so very grateful every day that I ever met him. So that's a huge thing this year. The other huge thing is the intensive dietary management program.
That's Jason Fung's practice.
Dr. Jason Fung and Megan Ramos hired me to do consultation with their clinic clients, and I'm still training for that, but I'll be doing that soon. I'll also be running a fasting group for them. Speaking of a fasting group, we have on the ketogenic forums, the Zorn Fast group is up and running right now.
Yeah, you're going to be so good at that.
You know what? Sometimes they don't have time to go in there as much, and they're supporting each other.
Yeah.
There's 40, I think I counted 50 people in there once, and they're really getting good at supporting each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're nearing the finish line. A lot of them do it with me in the same hours I do, and I'm stopping at 4 today. But they're allowed. We don't have rules in there. They start and stop when they want. But yeah, we're just finishing up a big fast right before Christmas right now.
It's really great when people do it together, because there's nothing like, being I'm hungry, and then somebody says, you can do it, take some salt or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Getting that encouragement.
So, and it works.
I just want to say, just to interrupt, I apologize, but the last Obesity Code podcast about the I forgot the man's name.
John Collier.
Oh, John Collier.
John, yeah.
That was a heartbreaker.
Oh,
And if anybody needs to tell anybody why they need to turn their diabetes around, that episode is a must listen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So during the recording of that, both Carl and John broke down during the recording. Carl probably won't mind me mentioning this. And Megan also broke down doing her recording. All of us, somebody was cutting onions in the room when we were putting together that podcast. Yeah. It stands on its own as one of the best things that Carl and I have done.
Yep.
And I guess we're segueing into me talking about my year, but because the Obesity Code podcast has been the majority of our last 2 months worth of work, really.
Yeah, it really
and
has.
If it wasn't for people like Daisy taking the ball and running with their own podcasts, we wouldn't have been able to spend so much time on the Obesity Code podcast. And also, we've had people lining up to be guests for Two Keto Dudes, and so we've not had to chase for that as much anymore, which has meant we've been able to do the Obesity Code podcast, because that's a very intensive. That's sort of takes basically 3 days of Carl's time and my time to put that whole thing together. And I guess Jason and Megan, they put a lot of work in, and a lot of the content gets cut. Because we're trying to edit the show to be about an hour long, and we end up with Jason will go on for an hour about the idea of type 2 diabetes being reversible, but the damage from diabetes not being reversible if you don't catch it early enough. And one of the examples is kidney disease, and he's a nephrologist.
Yeah.
The whole reason he got into this was because he was tired of seeing people that he couldn't help. You know, because once you get past that sort of macroalbuminuria, which is basically when your kidneys are unable to hold on to protein, once you get past that, you're not going to reverse that. And John Collier reversed his diabetes after 25 years. So he was diagnosed in 89 and reversed his diabetes just like 3 years ago. So you can reverse your diabetes at any point.
Right, Kevin is reversing his in just a few months, yeah.
Right.
But you can't reverse the damage that's done by it. It's kind of like when you don't put oil in your car, you do permanent damage to your engine. And once the permanent damage is done, you can put all the oil in you want, and it's not going to bring your car back.
This is why I was very angry when I saw on Twitter recently another registered dietitian saying that really diabetics needed to be worried about being on a low-carb or ketogenic diet because there are questions to be asked about its effect on the kidneys.
But there are no questions about the effect of diabetes on the kidneys.
Brenda, you mentioned that, and I heard the podcast where you're on with Kevin, and you mentioned that he's a Native American. I just thought I'd mention my brother, who is a professor at University of Minnesota in Duluth, a history prof. He and his wife are writing a book called Decolonizing the Diet, basically about Native Americans and...
Okay.
Basically, as he says, he challenges the common claim that Native American communities were decimated in 1492 because of the disease that was brought and all that kind of thing. Because he makes the point that, you know, human populations, you look at the Black Death in Europe, human populations are able to recover from mass epidemics within a century pretty much all the time.
Yep.
So he said that wasn't good enough as an explanation of what the hell went wrong. And he says what actually happened was that when people came and screwed their ability to hunt, gather, and farm nutritionally dense plants and animals.
And eat the food that worked for them and their body and their genetics,
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was the genocide. And so his book's coming out, I think, next year in March. You need to remind me, and I'll get him to send you a copy, because it sounds like...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, we're nearby where he is. We could probably go meet him and everything, yeah.
It could be quite useful.
We're getting pretty involved in this.
I think it's worthwhile because, as you've said, Richard, as well, these communities across the world have basically had genocidal crimes committed against them.
It's still
happening now. It's not something in the past. These people are being told to eat like this by... And it's... If you focus on it for just a moment, you start getting very angry, and you have to then focus that anger in some way useful.
So we have the same problem in Australia with the Australian Aboriginals, and you often see this trope amongst people like dietitians complaining about the quote-unquote Paleolithic diet, complaining that, well, how would we know what the Paleolithic man ate? You know, there's none around to talk to. Well, in fact, the last Australian tribe that walked out of the desert, walked out of the Paleolithic and into the modern era, did so in 1986.
Yep.
So we actually have people within recent record. We can say, what did you eat? You know, and so we can actually find these things out. And there was a researcher. Of course, the Australian Aboriginals are blighted with diabetes, with type 2 diabetes. This is something that, like the American Indians, progresses very quickly once it starts. They go very quickly. And part of this has to do with the fact that they're extremely insulin resistant. And if you look at their blood works back in sort of the 1970s, 1980s, before there was a lot of obesity among the in general population, if you look at their blood work, their HOMA IR scores that indicate what their insulin resistance shows, their glucose is fine, their insulin is blowing out. So their systems are primed to put on fat whenever they come into contact with carbohydrates. And what we did with them in Australia, and this is similar to every hunter-gatherer culture around the world, in Australia what we did was we tried to supplement their diet by giving them free rations of white sugar, white flour, and tea and tobacco. And they would get a packet of that.
The 4 food groups.
The 4 food groups. And the government would give a packet of that to every Australian. This was the ration sort of around I think it probably came in around about the Great Depression era, but this was sort of like the beginning of the 20th century. basically supplementing everybody's diet to give them calories by giving them calories from highly processed sugar and flour. And of course, with the Aboriginal populations, this moved very quickly
Made them very sick.
As Nick says, a genocidal disease. So
it's horrible.
Kevin is on a transplant list and has been for about 3.5 years. He's been on dialysis that long. But why reverses diabetes now that he's waiting for a kidney? Because, wow, check that out, 4.0 ketones. I just checked my ketones.
Wow, look at you.
That, on the finish line.
Brenda wins.
But yeah, I win again. But there are other, if he reverses his diabetes, he's going to avoid the other, like type 3 diabetes. I mean, he's going to avoid the other things that high, insulin and will do, and that is heart disease and dementia and all those other things that we amputation, all the things that we know that it does. He can be healthy in those ways, even though his kidneys are damaged now. Anyway, I just wanted to put that in there because there are a lot of things that eating keto now for him are going to help. Plus, it's giving him a lot of energy.
He's so lucky to have you. And seriously, I mean, if I could live with you and have you cook for me every day, I would. Seriously,
well,
we'd all be lucky.
You're also increasing his likelihood of being able to get a transplant by making him a healthier candidate.
Right.
Yeah. Richard, there was one thing that you said, and it's been something I've been thinking about recently, and I've been actually speaking to Amber O'Hearn about it and various other people as well. And you mentioned that the Australian Aboriginals are naturally very insulin resistant.
Right.
And I'm thinking about that phrase, and it's a bit like the pink shaming thing we were talking about earlier on. It makes them seem like we are normal with our insulin sensitivity, and they are somehow pathological with their insulin resistance.
That's an interesting comment. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I would prefer to say that their bodies are evolutionarily appropriately apportioning the insulin that they use to push the glucose into the cells that actually need it. So if we turn it around, we can say that those carb eaters who eat with carb are in emergency glucose disposal mode, rather than saying that they are insulin sensitive. Yeah. It sounds less cool when you say that, don't you? Yeah. So if you say, you're spending most of your life in emergency glucose disposal mode, and aren't you lucky you have that mode, bearing in mind what you're shoving down your gullet, unlike what you're supposed to be as an ice age fatty-brained species.
Absolutely,
I think sometimes, because it's perfectly appropriate.
Yes.
Can you imagine if the Aboriginal muscles and lipocytes were sponges for glucose? As soon as the liver does some gluconeogenesis, it would be sucked up. None of the glucose would make it to the brain or the blood cells, and they go into a coma. So thank heavens that they are acting appropriately for our species. It's people who have this weird constantly on glucose emergency disposal mode are the weirdos. And let's turn it around to that rather than saying, oh dear, you're not insulin resistant. That's a pity. We better try and feed you lots of potatoes so that you become insulin resistant.
That's actually a very good way of looking at it.
Well, we're running out of time here, guys, and I'd like to just have everybody give our sign off. And I'll start by saying it's been a crazy, amazing heck of a year for me. Weight-wise, nothing's really changed in a year, but I'm doing some experimentation to try to figure that out, and I'll tell you more about that in the new year. But I'm just very, very grateful to have met all of you and all of the listeners that I've met, all the people I met at Keto Fest, all the great people that I've gotten that Richard and I have gotten the chance to talk to in the last couple of years. It's just been fantastic, and I hope you all have a very happy holiday and a happy new year, and thank you.
Thank you. I have a correction because I can't do math. I've coached 700 people this year. I just added
that's a bit of a difference.
Sorry, people. I didn't forget about you individually. I simply can't add.
I've coached 4 privately, so I guess you win, but I'm not officially coaching yet.
It's not a competition, Brenda.
Kim, do you want to say a Happy New Year to the peeps?
I will. I want to say a very Happy New Year to everyone. I am over the moon thrilled that this community exists. I really have to attribute a lot of my success to the people on this call and some other people not on this call, but the Two Keto Dudes community they're my heart. They are lovely people. And, when you enter this alternative universe of keto, it's really important to have support, and I can't thank these people enough for being the support I needed on my journey, and the support they continue to offer.
I totally agree with you, Kim. These guys have got more integrity than most anyone I've met. You guys are awesome.
Oh, you guys.
You're awesome too, Brenda. And Kim. And Daisy and Nick. You're all awesome.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Enjoy your Yorkshire puddings.
Daisy, any last words?
Well, I had something I meant to tell you earlier, actually. It's a bit of a funny. It's an auto-carrot funny that was in my Facebook group.
Sexy lady.
Yeah.
Autocorrect is what we call autocorrect, because autocorrect.
Audio correct. Auto.
That
Someone
damn
called
autocorrect.
Lish Cook and her sister were sending texts backwards and forwards. And this is what Lish Cook sent to her sister. Mixed up some cream cheese with last of my cheddar and some green chilies. Stuffed my panties with it. It was good. Not panties. Holy shit. Patties. I just thought that was hilarious.
Stuff my panties.
I love auto-carrot.
You really have to watch the green chilies in the panties. That would be uncomfortable.
Too hot. Too hot.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
All right, we'll see you in 2018.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.